Good morning, Georgianna. Welcome to this week's Take 5. You may notice I am not in our normal location. I am in Guatemala. We're having an awesome time on this medical dental mission team here in Guatemala, and it's just been a huge blessing. So we look forward to sharing that with you when we're back. But right now, we are in the middle of this kind of Take 5 series about courageous faith. And so, Pastor Corky, thank you so much for letting me step in today. And we're going to look at an interesting story in the book of Genesis about Abram and Lot. This morning. So Abram is the person who becomes Abraham in the Old Testament, ends up being this huge patriarch of the Israelite people. But here's an early story from his life about him and his nephew Lot. Now, Abram is doing his best to follow what God has called him to do, to go into this new land, just to simply follow God in faith, just take this enormous step out to where God is going to lead him. And along the way, he takes his family and he takes his nephew Lot with him as they go. And the way things go, they end up being really so prosperous, Abram and Lot do. They're just so rich and wealthy that the land that they're on just can't support them both. They just end up having so much livestock and so many things. The land can't support them both. Like, what a great problem to have, right? And so they have this short conversation about, okay, what do they do? How can they kind of amicably separate? And what should they do so that they don't overwhelm the land that they're on? And so here's how the conversation goes. This is Genesis 13, verses 8 and 9. Then Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are kinsmen, we're family, right? We're together, relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the left hand, I'll go to the right. Or if you take the right hand, I'll go to the left." So when I read that, the first thing that I wonder is, where did this go in today's society, right? You can have a disagreement with someone, or you can have just kind of an issue between you. And the resolution to that is someone saying, all right, whatever you do, I'll do the other. You know, where you go, if you go this way, I'll go this way. It's fine, right? So that sort of resolution to conflict where you just kind of defer to the other person, where did that go? That's such an interesting concept that we see in Abram and Lot's story. But really what Abram is kind of acting on is he knows that there's a strong promise from God from Genesis 12, just a chapter before that. There's a strong promise from God that he is going to give him a land. He is going to bless his family. And so Abram knows, he has such courageous faith in God. Abram knows that whatever Lot picks, he can pick the other, and it doesn't matter, because what matters is God's blessing is with him. He has this enormous courageous faith, and he knows God is with him the entire way. And then you see it as the story continues. So you don't have to look far. The very next chapter, you see Lot chooses this land that he thinks is fertile. He thinks is going to make him even more wealthy. It's going to be great for him. But then it has this little thing where it says, okay, it's kind of close to the land of Sodom. And if you're familiar with Sodom, and if that kind of raises the hair on your arms a little bit, then it definitely would have the people who read this first. They would have known what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. And so to hear that Lot is going to be close to Sodom, they would know it's probably not going to go well for him. And that's exactly what happened. So even before Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed, Lot is there just close to the land, and he gets kind of caught up in this turf war between these rival kings. And Abram has to go and rescue Lot out of kind of the mess that he's gotten himself into. So he kind of selfishly chooses the land first because it's going to be good for him. And then what we see is he kind of gets himself in a mess. Whereas what you see from Abram, just later in chapter 13, is Abram chooses the land that Lot doesn't. And God comes to him and he says he's going to bless that land. So it doesn't really matter what he chose. He can defer to Lot, but God is going to bless that land. And so God says to Abram, look to your left, look to your right, look to the north, to the south, all of this I'm going to give to you, and you're going to be blessed because of it. And so Abram, again, has this courageous faith because he knows that God is with him. God has given him this strong promise. And so again, where did this go today? We don't do this anymore. You get into an argument and you kind of stand up for what's right and what's yours, and the idea that you would defer to someone else and say, all right, you do what you need to do, and I'll do the other. But I think we can do that sometimes, of course, when it's appropriate. We can do that sometimes because we have this courageous faith that God is on our side, God is with us, God is here because he wants to bless his people. And so I pray that you would have courageous faith. Here's what's funny is that the title of this little devotion is The Road Less Traveled. And I think, kind of metaphorically speaking, it is the road less traveled to us, or it's really the posture that we don't have very often. And so I would encourage you to take the road less traveled when you kind of encounter situations like this. What does it look like to defer to the other person? And here in Guatemala, we absolutely took the road less traveled to where we are today and where we've been in several places this week. But we are here to not only to be God's blessing, but to receive God's blessing. And sometimes it takes that road less traveled or that posture that we don't have very often. And God blesses that, and we can have faith in that. And so, just one little quick thing later on in the New Testament, if you just kind of need just a little bit more support for this, Paul talks about the freedom that we have in Christ. And he says, really, don't overindulge in your freedom. Don't assert your way. You're welcome to defer to someone else. Don't overindulge in your freedom because he says, you know what's going to happen? You are going to bite and devour each other if we all insist on our own way. So I would encourage you, take the road less traveled, have the posture that we don't have very often, unfortunately, and trust in this courageous faith that God has given us. I hope you were blessed this week. Thank you so much, and we'll see you when we're back from Guatemala.